Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Lucas Dietzen and you are tuned into Blues News Media, a show where we try to figure out just what in the hell is going on. I don't claim to be sitting on a mountain of forbidden information or have a wealth of knowledge in my backyard. Rather, we just strive to go over little bits and pieces of puzzle pieces to try and hopefully, collectively, get just a glimpse of what is actually going on. And with that being said, I certainly have found some rather interesting little news article puzzle pieces that I would like to present to all of you. Hopefully, get your take on it, and hopefully have you spread this message around. This episode, a great deal of it is going to be about what is to come. Not exactly of what is to come in regards to how bad the virus is going to be, what's going to happen next on that front. But instead, we're going to look over not even predictions, but what they are saying is going to come in order to curb society, change our behavior, socially condition us to accept the new normal, which I strongly urge everybody to reject outright. But to start out with, and this one's what really caught my eye, it's air travel. And the title of this article from Forbes is Future Air Travel, 4-hour process, self-check-in, disinfection, immunity passes. It's a lot to unpack already, but let's just dive right in. Once airports and borders open again and people are able to fly freely, a process already in play as airports of all sizes around the world ready strategies to ensure healthy air travel. How much are you ready to change your flying habits? As much as required after 9/11? Less? More? Always we're comparing it often to 9/11 because it's the next big event. Considering some of the changes already happening and the many more recommended before airports can reopen safely to commercial routes, experts are referring to the coronavirus pandemic as the new terrorism, triggering the biggest crisis the airline industry has ever faced. And in my last episode, I went over how this is the new war on terror. It's the war on disease, the war on viruses. This is the new forever war, one that you will never stop hearing about. Except in this one, we're all suspects. Let's start with the entire process of checking in for flights, which some calculate that it could take up to 4 hours and involving social distancing, sanitation of passengers and luggage, wider spaces for various lines, and waiting to board. 9 out of 10 experts, who those experts are, who's to say, expect slower turnarounds between flights due to the need of thorough cleaning of cabins and following of sanitary measures at airports. In the short run, though, it's expected that reduced passenger numbers and airlines traveling to a smaller pool of destinations may reduce delays. So get in while you can now. You won't have to wait. But what can you expect? Among the steps under consideration, no cabin bags. Can't carry anything on, buddy. No lounges. Can't sit around. No automatic upgrades. Obviously, face masks and surgical gloves will be required. Self-check-in, another move, another push towards automation. Self-bag drop-off. Immunity passports. On-the-spot blood tests. And sanitation, disinfection tunnels. And those are the things where it's like the big kind of like boxes that you'll walk through and you get sprayed with who knows what. But the big ones right there, especially for me at least, immunity passports. This has been talked about. Like Bill Gates is trying to right now come out with this vaccine where it injects a small little like ID chip in you, and that'll be your new passport. That's to show that either you got the disease and recovered and can move around freely, or you got the vaccination. But then it can work the other way. You didn't get the vaccine yet. Well, you are not safe to be outside. And of course, and horrifying enough, on the spot blood tests. So roll up your sleeve, buddy. Before you can get on this plane, I just gotta take your blood. Are you kidding me? How deranged is that? Continues with, digital technologies and automation will play a critical role in the future of air travel. The need to reduce touch points at airports implies mandatory use of biometric boarding that allows passengers to board planes with only their face as a passport, facial recognition, artificial intelligence. A number of airlines, including British Airways, Qantas, if I'm pronouncing that right, and EasyJet already are using the technology. According to the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, the new normal at major airports such as Heathrow, JFK, and Singapore Changi will include almost exclusive use of online check-ins and contactless payments. Then there are the radical changes the airports will have to make, starting most probably with stopping non-flyers from entering at all, except for unaccompanied minors or others who need assistance. No longer can you walk in and pick your friend up from the airport. No. You gotta wait outside. We gotta reduce the spread, flatten the curve until we find a cure. They will need more extensive all-biometric check-in systems and efficient do-it-yourself for dropping off bags, travel bubbles, or tunnels for disinfection. After being checked in, luggage may also be put through a disinfection fogging tunnel. They also must install demarcation of the spaces for social distancing in corridors and concourses. Larger spaces for queues and waiting, plexiglass, or other protective barriers at customer service counters, hand sanitation stations, thermal scanning to check crowds for fever-grade body temperatures. And if you've been paying attention, watching our other episodes, they have like helmets for police officers to scan entire crowds. They're putting up poles in some cities to scan the crowds around to see if they have elevated temperatures. Anyway, which are already in use, in some major airports. This is slowly being rolled out. They're trying to acclimate you to what is to come. Only those fit to fly will be allowed to enter, predicts the airline strategy firm Simplifying in a recent report, where it identifies more than 70 different areas in the passenger journey that are expected to either change or to be introduced from scratch, including having bags sanitagged after going through fogging, electrostatic, or UV disinfection to restore confidence in flying after COVID-19. And a lot of this, like cleaning stuff, like this is going to decimate employment at airports. And if you think, oh, well, at least they can take those people and move them more towards the sanitation industry, you may be sadly incredibly wrong, because I'm just going to jump over to this article real quick. This says 60 Minutes shows Amazon's virus-killing robot. Says company uses AI to enforce social distancing. And if you're still using Amazon, I don't know how you stumbled across this channel, but you really need to stop. You really need to stop. It is one of the, if not the most soulless companies out there today. And right now, they are utilizing these sorts of robots that are going to utilize light to disinfect areas, mainly in distribution centers, is what this article talks about specifically. and then rolling it out to like where this picture is taken, grocery stores. So even then, that shows you that they're not going to like have people in hazmat suits sanitizing everything. They have a plan for this. They have a backup plan, and it's going to be robots. They're cheaper. They're more efficient. They don't have to sleep. And then also, I'd highly recommend reading this article. But then also, interesting is the company uses AI to enforce social distancing. Make sure, I'm sure, who knows, repeated offenders. Is it 3 strikes you're out? Sorry, you came 2 feet within one of your coworkers. You gotta go. Like, where are we heading? This is totally uncharted territory. And if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Amazon. So please, stop. Stop giving them money. Bezos doesn't need any more. I just wanted to point that out. So jumping back. The Telegraph explains that it may sound futuristic, but UV sanitation is likely to become commonplace at the world's airports. London Heathrow says it is to begin trialing the process for its security trays. So, whoop. Everybody's, it's just disgusting. The blatant, like, horror of germs and viruses now, even though you need to be exposed to some, otherwise your immune system will just be a hollow shell of its former self. That's like one of the main sinister aspects behind this lockdown thing. You're inside, you're breathing the same air, not outside enjoying the sunlight. You're destroying your immune system all the time. Like the good fighting veterans of your white blood cells becoming lax and lazy and not being exposed to new things. It's sick. But that's another whole nother thing. It continues with, and then comes boarding. Now we can finally get on after all of that invasion of privacy. The boarding process is expected also to become touchless, with options including facial recognition, already used in some U.S. airports for international flights. On the planes, there will be blocked seats, electrostatic spraying, personnel and protective gear, that's not horrifying, and, of course, masks. Major European carriers such as Air France and KLM already have made them compulsory, and it is expected that all other airlines will do the same. As for food, the tendency is to stop serving altogether on short-haul flights, while the airlines consider light refreshments for long-haul flights. Hong Kong Airlines has decided to stop offering food altogether. But on arrival, at the arrival point, simplifying forecast international passengers will need to show some type of immunity document/passport, also advocated by the International Air Transport Association to border control agents. Once a vaccine has been found, it's always the vaccine they're pushing. That could shift to a proof of vaccination, kind of like that Bill Gates little chip in the arm with the vaccine. Like they're prepping you. The reason that and everywhere it's always pushing vaccines, and we could get into the whole how evil and soulless these pharmaceutical companies are, and now for some reason they have a chance to make literally billions of dollars, and now we're going to trust them to not fuck us over. You got to be kidding me. I'm sorry, but why would you ever start to trust them now above all times? Arriving passengers will also undergo another temperature screening at their final destination, and potentially even blood tests for COVID-19. You got on there and they did all that crap, and now you're getting off and they're going to do all that crap. Condé Nast predicts. Some airports like Hong Kong and Vienna are testing passengers for the coronavirus with blood tests before they are allowed to enter the country. Those types of tests, however, might be short-lived. Thermal testing is also recommended by IATA, while Airlines UK, which represents British Airways, EasyJet, and Virgin Atlantic, has said pre-screening of travelers should be introduced ideally as early in the passenger journey as possible, reports The Telegraph. Although there are no standard decisions about making such tests and screening mandatory, Airports and airlines are pushing for uniform regulations, just kind of like after 9/11 when they created entire agencies and started putting in all these arbitrary rules that were really never about stopping terrorism. So that's something to think about. It's not clear who will be responsible for checking travelers' temperatures and other COVID 19 symptoms, for example. Simplifying predicts that a new federal health agency likely will be created to coordinate health screenings inside airports. As immediately following 9/11, a process of trial and error is likely. How much freedom and liberty can we take away? How much can we degrade the general populace? With many airports and airlines following what some pioneers establish. There will be new protocols for check-in involving digital technology hand sanitizer stations at frequent points, including where luggage is stored, contactless payment instead of cash, trying to kill cash, move towards that digital dollar, using stairs more often than lifts where the 2-meter rule can be harder to maintain, and fitness equipment being moved for greater separation, among other examples, the WTTC wrote in a recent report. The international institution says that the sector will face a gradual return to travel over the coming months as a new normal, a new conditioning emerges before a vaccine becomes available on a mass scale, large enough to inoculate billions of people. Billions of people. What if you do not want that? I'm just saying. I prefer to boost my immune system personally. But that, I mean, they admit it. They admit it right there. They're coming. They're coming with this vaccine, and they intend to get everybody. Travel is likely to return first to domestic markets with staycations, then to countries' nearest neighbors before expanding across regions, and then finally across continents to welcome the return of journeys to long-haul international destinations. WTTC believes that younger travelers in the 18 to 35 age group, who will appear to be less vulnerable to COVID-19, also may be among the first to begin traveling again, which in my opinion really makes sense. You got to get the kids, you got to get the young folk used to this, accustomed to this, the new normal. Because just like with 9/11, everything changed. And now, like, I was born in 1995, so by the time I grew up and saw all these security like measures in place, it was normal. It was regular to me. I didn't really question it until I started waking up to what was actually going on. And it's going to play out the same way. Get these kids now, have them grow up, have kids, have families, and show them, well, it's always been this way. And it's necessary. It's necessary. Please, please, little Timmy, just roll up your sleeve. I know it hurts, but he's only going to take a little blood. It's okay. According to Gloria Guevara, WTTC president and CEO, traveling in the new normal age requires coordinated actions, including new standards and protocols for a safe and responsible road to recovery for the global travel and tourism sector as consumers start planning trips again, if you can even afford it after the plundering of the economy. The new protocols and standards are being defined following feedback from associations representing different travel sectors, and then many, many sectors that you and I have never probably heard of. But with protocols and standards, biometric systems, immunity passports, and the best intentions for a safe road to recovery, the future of traveling, as New York Times' Neeraj Chokshi explains, is still bleak. With much of the world closed for business and no widely available vaccine in sight, it may be months, if not years, before airlines operate as many flights as they did before the crisis. Even when people start flying again, the industry could be transformed, much as it was after the September 11 terrorist attacks. This is the new 9/11. This is the new transforming event that is going to change society. And in the process, as it is already the case, some airlines, especially smaller ones, will be pushed into bankruptcy or become takeover targets. Consumer fears about catching the virus on crowded planes could lead to reconfigured seating. Carriers may initially entice wary travelers with discounts, but if they can't fill up flights, they may resort to raising ticket prices. For Dave Calhoun, CEO of Boeing, that warmongering company, not only are the smaller airlines in danger, he thinks that at least a major U.S. carrier will most likely go out of business due to the coronavirus pandemic. I'm sure Boeing will be fine with all of their great U.S. military contracts going on. In an interview with NBC's News Today on Tuesday, he told Savannah Guthrie, "Something will happen when September comes around. Traffic levels will not be back to 100%. They won't even be back to 25%. Maybe by the end of the year, we will approach 50%. So there will definitely be adjustments that have to be made on the part of the airlines." It goes to show you what they have planned, what is coming. You got to get there 4 hours early. Adhere to social conditioning, distancing. You're going to be thermal scanned to see if you have a temperature. So God forbid you even just had the normal cold or flu. You're going to need quite possibly proof of immunity, which either means you're going to have had this and recover, or you're going to have gotten the vaccine. You're going to have to submit to all of these incredibly intrusive privacy violations. Your body is not going to be your own. You will be poked, you will be prodded, blood will be drawn, and you will have to smile and take it. Not me. I don't know about you. If they even come close to implementing even like a sliver of all this stuff, and I fear that they will, I'm going to be taking a boat. I'm going to find myself a dinghy. I'm going to make a raft and find a coconut and name him Wilson, because I guarantee you, you're not doing any of that to me. No, sir. I'd much rather drive, take a train, do any number of forms of travel than submit to this draconian policy. And that was just air travel. I'm sure many, many more things are going to come, and I just wanted to get this other thing out of the way. Now, I don't know about all of you. I have a child. That's why I'm really scared about what's coming, what future my kid is going to have to bear witness to. That's why I have this article I want to show for all those other parents out there or parents-to-be. This one's from Activist Post. If you're not following them, you should. They put out amazing content. I would highly recommend them. But this one is called, "What Will Schools Look Like After COVID? Prison Camps." They'll look like prison camps. That's a very hyperbolic title, if you ask me. But it intrigued me. I picked it up, I read it, and it is horrifying. Just imagine you're a child. I don't care which one, elementary school level, middle school, high school. Just imagine yourself going through the public school system, okay? And this is what the article opens with. If you've been wondering what it will look like when the kids go back to school, one school in Quebec has released their new guidelines, and they're shocking. Apparently, schools are going to look a lot like prison camps. This is another example of how things will not just go back to normal, everything is changing, including life for our children. Now, this is in Quebec, Canada. I'm from the United States. I'm in Wisconsin. My fellow Americans, a lot of you like to think you're untouchable, that this stuff happens in faraway lands, never to come to the home of the free, land of the brave. But it is. It is. This is just being reported in Canada first. Schools in Quebec, Canada are opening on May 19th. It's coming up. And one school released its guidelines. This list was submitted by a parent to the Facebook page Kate for Education. The school was not named for the privacy of the parent. Now, if you're saying to yourself, oh yeah, look at that. This is in Canada. There's no way this nonsense will happen here in America. I urge you to remember that the lockdown restrictions in Canada are far less stringent than those in the United States. Look around at the ridiculous rules we already have, like stores choosing what items are essential for us to buy. And that's insane too. Then tell me it can't happen here. It's perfect. I mean, not to mention that the global food chain is going to collapse and potentially millions of people can fall into a famine, which most likely means millions of people will die, and they deemed seeds non-essential. I mean, is it clicking yet? It's not about keeping you safe, happy, and healthy. It's about implementing control over your daily life. But here are those opening guidelines, and we'll go over these at least because these are huge. To minimize movement, we forecast assigning students to classes near the Berlin Street entrance. So, limiting where kids can come into, designated drop-off and pickup areas. Once assigned to a class, students will spend their entire day, including lunchtime, in their assigned seats. Imagine you're in first grade, second grade, doesn't matter. Any of the grades, really. Imagine doing that now. You could only sit in this one seat for 8 hours a day, including lunchtime. And this would just be detrimental to kids' bodies, not to mention their minds. Kids are fidgety. What happens if they get uppity? What are you going to do? But they're trying to cram them into their desk, never to venture out. Students must expect to be regrouped based on the number of students returning. I hope there's a mass exodus from public schools and homeschooling becomes big after this. Students must not expect to return to their regular class with their classmates. Sorry, you can't see your best friend again. Your child may not be with the same teachers as before, as several members of our staff will not be returning to school. That's understandable. Everybody's steeped in fear, and I'm sure there's a lot of teachers that are older and don't want to put themselves at risk. That I understand. But also, just thinking from like the perspective of a child, there's a lot of everything's high tension, everything's scary right now, but I'm sorry. That one pillar of stability that you had from school, your teacher, is not going to be here anymore. It's going to be traumatizing for kids. Teachers not returning to school will continue working and keeping close contact with students remotely from home as recommended by the government. Good old daddy government. Activities completed while in school will not be evaluated or graded. Isn't the point of school is to, at least the American school system, you get good grades so you can get into a good college, acquire a good amount of debt, and get a good tax generating job. Now, they're saying it's nothing. It's worthless. What's the point? No physical materials will be transported back and forth between home and school, except book bags and lunches and pencils. So that right there, arbitrary conflicts, doesn't make sense. Students must include a mini garbage bag, garbage and recycling bag with their lunch in order to collect their personal garbage and dispose of it at home, but see the rule before, you can't bring anything to school, can't be transported. You figure it out. All students must bring in their personal labeled and filled water bottles, as water fountains won't be available, but again, don't bring it in because you can't bring it out. Sharing of all items, pencils, pens, sharpeners, wax, crayons, rulers, toys, is not permitted. When weather permits, recess breaks will be held outside or outdoors and will entail of walking outside safely distanced from one another in a prearranged pattern. They're going to trot them out like prisoners on the blacktop. They're going to keep them 6 feet apart. I mean, you might as well put chains around their waist at that point to enforce this safe distancing. It's ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous. Gatherings, groups of students together, will not be permitted. Can't go by your best friend. Limited travel throughout the school by, uh, sorry, limited travel throughout the school by all during the day, locking everything down. Bathroom visits will be monitored slash escorted so that proper disinfection by our caretakers can follow before another student uses the facilities. I understand why they're doing this based on the whole narrative of super scary deadly virus. But also, I have a problem of a grown adult following my child into the bathroom, and maybe they're claiming, well, they'll stay outside the bathroom, but specifically saying, you take my child to the bathroom while you very well know no one's going to be around. And this isn't just weird, crazy conspiracy stuff. This is concerned parent stuff. As per government recommendations, masks and gloves will not be provided. What if you don't have any? Students are certainly welcome to bring these items from home. They are also invited to carry their own personal disinfecting wipes with them if they wish. Lockers will no longer be used. Students will place their spring/summer jackets behind the chair they will be using and their school bags under their assigned desks, so you can't get up for a pencil. There will be no cafeteria service or home and school pizza and frozen yogurt days. I guess that's a thing at this school. So no cafeteria services. There will be no physical activity taking place in the gym, no art classes, although art and craft projects can be promoted as home suggestions, which is fine. Again, promote homeschooling. Please go to homeschool, but definitely like, haha, you do it. No library periods and no drama classes, completely shattering any sort of extracurricular activities, which I'm sure many people will agree was like the highlight of the day. No fundraisers or after-school activities will take place. Parent volunteers will not be permitted in school. We recommend your child brings a book or two of interest from home to read, because they're just destroying everything. And students with fever or flu-like symptoms will be returned home, regardless if it is the cold or flu. It could potentially be COVID-19. But I'll put this article in the show notes for you to read, and I encourage you to go read. But imagine yourself in this scenario as a child. Again, I don't care if you are talking kid or like teenager. A school is supposed to be a safe place, a fun place, at least, perceived by the child. And with that, it's supposed to promote learning. It's supposed to encourage them to want to learn and engage, get themselves out there. But the very nature of these rules that they are suggesting, and I assume are going to be rolled out, not just in Canada, but in the United States as well, it's going to destroy children's love and desire and capacity to learn. They're going to turn what was once a happy little setting into one where you need to be in a state of constant fear at all times because you might catch this disease. And then with the things that they promote out in the media, and then you might carry it to who knows where, who knows when, and kill who knows who. It's putting these kids' mind in a state of constant fear and panic. This is not healthy. This is not right. And I know if I were subjected to that when I was a child, I'd be a much different person today. And I know I do not want to subject my kid or anybody's kid to this sort of psychological horror stress dream. But I encourage you to read it. There's more to this, but this was like the main point, and it's scary. It's scary. It's scary to know what is to come. It's just a matter of time. But now, you have been seeing, again, I'm from Wisconsin, so we have been seeing that the Supreme Court overruled Governor Evers' decision or implementation of the stay-at-home order. Honestly, on what basis, I don't know. This is all just smoke and mirror, fun and games, watch everybody, fall more into the confusion and misinformation of what's going on. But that's happening. Things are starting to open up as they threaten you with, this will be the darkest winter in modern history. Which, in my opinion, is a threat. They're saying, we're coming for you. We're dropping the ball every which way. It's going to get bad. And you're going to beg us to come save the day. Anyway, it's another video. But some places are opening up. Like none other than Washington State. And this one is interesting just from like the little things that they put in these briefings. They say volumes. But this is called Governor Inslee lays out statewide contact tracing plan for COVID-19. And I'll put this in the show notes for you to go and read yourself. But I'm just going to go over some of the big ticket things. Contact tracing, as we have already discussed, is just a pretty little word of, we're going to surveil you, we're going to track you, we're going to spy on you, and we're going to come to your door, and we're going to see who you were by, and make sure that they quarantine themselves, too. They're just admitting it. They're just admitting the slow rollout of this medical martial law. But it's called contact tracing. Box in the virus. Box yourself into a smaller and smaller area till you forget all about those pesky civil liberties. Those were just fever dream hallucinations. You don't have those. But it's a 5-step plan. First one is isolation. Quarantine upon first symptoms. The governor recommends that people are to quarantine immediately for 14 days upon experiencing the first symptoms. It is symptoms. It says systems. This includes entire households. All members of the household must isolate with the possible infected person, which is interesting because we see in one of my other episodes, it talks about one of the main World Health Organization officials who has deep ties to Bill Gates was talking about how that we need to remove people from the home if they become infected, because that's where the main transmission is taking place now, kind of like the practices done in China. But they say, shove them in there, just close them off from the world. Anyone who has had contact with that person will be quarantined until they have tested negative, even if they have not tested positive or shown symptoms. So even if you are not sick, even if you do not have this disease, you need to test negative before we let you go, you hostage. Even though there has been many cases, I think the latest, biggest, funniest one was it the Tanzanian president testing like a goat up a pie in a car or something, and with the World Health Organization test kits, and they came back positive. There have been studies showing that the rate of false positives is great, and we're just going to administer these and say, hey, roll the dice, maybe you'll get out alive. But that's the first step. Then they want to test widely. Then they're going to test widely. And they say contact tracers will reach out to notify those that may have been exposed to COVID-19 within 24 to 48 hours. They're going to act fast of a positive test. The governor compared the contact tracers to the COVID brigade, to the operation of a fire brigade. As I mentioned before, they're going to militarize this sort of response. First, it's going to be, friendly, happy, local neighborhood people. But slowly, the veil is going to be lifted, and you're going to see the true horror that is behind these plans. But they want to paint pretty things on it, like data is only accessible to public health officials, even though they're going to use your geolocation data to track you and see where you were. It will not be shared with anyone else. The Hippocratic Oath, sure. And contacts will not be told the name of the person who may have exposed them to COVID-19. After we do that, we're going to move to isolate quickly, identify, and quarantine contacts. And then it goes into how many people or how many contact tracers they are going to have at the ready that will be enforcing most of these rules. The finding, the testing, the quarantining. And if you notice, a good chunk of those people are National Guard. And we see them being rolled out to help with testing. So at least it goes along with that. And we're going to get into this, but it's also going to be, again, militarized to the point where the actual military is going to be on the street very, very soon. And we're going to tie this all together. But then that's like the first roll. And then by the end of the week, it says down here, Inslee said that the state will have 1,371 contact tracers trained and ready. 351 of those will be National Guard, 390 will be Department of Licensing, and 630 will be state/local health professionals. Contact tracers will not ask for the following information: immigration status, social security number, financial info, or marital status. Again, they're happy, they're friendly, they're the neighborhood heroes. There's nothing to fear. We're the good guys. I'm sure a lot of these people think that too. But for the main event is the enforcement of this. For those businesses, individuals that don't comply, the governor stated that he confirmed with Attorney General Bob Ferguson there will be sanctions in civil or criminal court. They will go after you legally with this. At timestamp 38:55 in the video of the press conference below, you can watch for yourselves. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to read what he said. Reporter asked, when it comes to contact tracing, how are you guys going to handle people or families who want to refuse to test or to self-isolate? If they want to leave their home to get groceries, I know you said that they can't do that. How will you make sure they don't? And the governor, Inslee, says, we will have attached to the families a family support person who will check in with them to see what they need on a daily basis and help them. If they can't get a friend to do their grocery shopping, we will help get them groceries in some fashion. If they need pharmaceuticals to be picked up, we will make sure they get their pharmaceuticals. That's going to help encourage them to maintain their isolation too, kind of avoiding the question. We're going to baby them so much that they're not going to want to go out. As far as refusal, it just shouldn't come to that. And it really hasn't. We've had really good success when we ask people to isolate, and they've done so in really high percentages. So we're happy about that, and we believe that will continue. Therefore, those individuals that refuse to cooperate with contact tracers and or refuse testing, those individuals will not be allowed to leave their homes to purchase basic necessities. He avoided the question. He's like, oh, no. It's not going to come to that. It's not going to come to that. People aren't going to do this. It's kind of scary. Those persons will need to make arrangements through friends, family, or state-provided family support personnel. What if they don't have friends? What if they don't have family? What if they just want to refuse to be tested? What would be the protocol to get them off? Are you going to quarantine them, literally weld their door shut for 14 days until you assume that this virus that they may or may not have has dissipated? Again, this is akin. We saw this. We saw this in China. We are using China as the model. They literally welded entire apartment buildings shut to stop the spread of this disease. A disease, mind you, though when they first started painting this was some like crazy end of days virus, has obviously it turned out not to be that. Not to say that this isn't serious, not to say people are not dying, not to say there shouldn't be action taken. But these crazy draconian measures where they're honestly saying you will not be allowed to leave your home. It's just not going to come to that. We're not going to let it happen. It's scary. It's scary. Because not only will they have the National Guard on the streets helping to conduct all these tests, contact tracing, literally coming to your door to see if you have this thing. And if you refuse to be tested, there's underlying threats that you won't be able to leave and support yourself. Just to make that a little worse, say something comes along. Say something is coming to save the day. You have Trump here, who said this yesterday. Trump says military will be mobilized to deliver coronavirus vaccine by the end of the year. This man, and I'm not going to read it, I'll put this in the show notes for you to read, but he basically mentioned how he will mobilize the military. And if you've been paying attention at all, on the onset of all this during February and March, we saw military movements. We saw these tanks rolling out, especially to major cities, and being stored on the side. And now he's going ahead and saying that the military will be used to roll out a vaccination program, first just for the elderly, and I'm sure then for medical workers too. But just like if you refuse to be tested, you can't leave your home, or if you don't have proof of immunity, you can't travel. Where does it stop? Where is it going to end? Are you be able to get a job? Are you be able to own a car and drive somewhere? Will your kids be able to attend school? Will you be able to go to the grocery store or just go shopping? Or do you need the vaccine for that? Do you need proof of immunity that will be at the ready with the, quite literally, like the vaccine gun? Like, they're going to be there. They're going to be on the street, and they're going to help slowly roll this out. And there's not much being said right now about if you refuse, where are they going to move the goalpost? I'm sure many people right now are saying, no, that couldn't possibly happen. No, they won't force a vaccination. But you can see it in the water. The diehard statists will love to force you to have this. They want you to get injected with it because they think this is the end-all, be-all. And maybe they're right, but I haven't seen the evidence. This is scary. And before anybody comes at me as saying like, he's an anti-vaxxer, this guy's just a whack job, he's a delusional nut. It's not true. I've been vaccinated throughout my kid years, and my child's been vaccinated. I'm not inherently anti-vaccine. I think this idea of a magical serum that could prevent illness is beautiful and potentially very useful. I do not trust the government. I do not trust the pharmaceutical companies. These institutions that have had a long track record of lying to you, of pushing purposefully harmful products on the pharmaceutical side, and then the government buying up vaccines that didn't have any sort of real approval from the FDA. Like, it's out there. This is a real thing. People just need to read about it. Don't just hear vaccine and immediately think, oh no, that's bad, I'm not going to take that. Or if you hear vaccine, you go, oh God, you need to take that. If you don't, you're crazy. You got to do the research. It's not wacky. It's on the internet in black and white. You can read the reports. So I will refuse this vaccine on the basis of they are rushing it. They are rushing it, and they are just throwing aside these safety measures and guidelines. Like, usually a vaccine would take years to accomplish, and they're trying to accomplish it within 1 year, within a year. So basically in a matter of months. I'm supposed to take that with the long history of criminal governments and lying pharmaceutical companies? Why would I do that? Why would anybody do that? And that brings me to my last thing of Trump announcing Operation Warp Speed will deliver coronavirus vaccine as fast as possible. President Donald Trump on Friday said that Operation Warp Speed will develop a coronavirus vaccine as fast as possible, as they are bypassing these safety measures. Again, pointed to the end of the year as the timeline. He would like to see that. That will then apparently be enforced by the strong arm of the state. In the White House Rose Garden, Trump called Operation Warp Speed a massive scientific, industrial, and logistical endeavor unlike anything our country has seen since the Manhattan Project. He's literally likening it to the creation of the atom bomb. Like, all the red flags should be being thrown up. The sound alarm should be blaring. It's not the first time the president has talked about the initiative, which has the goal of expediting the development, manufacturing, and distribution of coronavirus vaccine. Last month, Trump said he was in charge of it. The president announced new members of the team, including Moncef Slaoui, the previous head of GlaxoSmithKline's vaccine division, and Army General Gustave Perna. Trump called Slaoui, who will serve as the initiative's chief scientist, one of the most respected men in the world in the production and really in the formulation of vaccines. So a long time established pharmaceutical, what am I, drunk? Executive. The initiative will help safely expedite vaccine trials, Trump said, adding that 14 vaccine candidates show promise. Top vaccine candidates will move into production before they are approved, Trump said. They're going to make them before they give them the okay to eliminate unnecessary delay, or in my opinion, put people further at risk. We're gearing up. It's risky, it's expensive, but we'll be saving massive amounts of time. We'll be saving years if we do this properly. Even though he's saying it's a massive gamble, they can be risky. What does the risk entail? People dying. People dying. And this is exactly what apparently a lot of people are trying to prevent. Unnecessary death. And yet he is purposely putting people in harm's way. And, while I add, using your tax dollars to do it. The military will be involved in the distribution of the vaccine once approved, the president added. In response to a question about the affordability of the vaccine, Trump said the last thing anybody is looking for is profit, even though that is the only reason that pharmaceutical companies would even consider getting in this business. If another country comes up with the vaccine first, Trump said he expects they'll share it with the United States and vice versa. When asked if China would share a vaccine if it's the first country to develop one, Trump said, despite his persistent criticism of the country where the virus originated, we're working together with many different countries, and again, we have no ego, the president said. Despite the initiative, Trump said the United States will rebound even without a vaccine. Vaccine or no, we're back, Trump said, as if we're a TV show, adding that the virus will go away at some point, which is not true. They've already mentioned the darkest winter in modern history. The second wave is coming, and many waves after that, at least in name, possibly on a real release of a bioweapon. The sound of truck horns could be heard during Trump's remarks. He claimed they weren't protest of him, but a sign of love, though they persisted throughout much of his comments. So, there you have it. Nothing much good going on in the world today. It's all very scary. Your world is going to be upended from you traveling to your child going to school. And even as all these jobs are lost, automation is going to come and take over a great chunk of the workforce. As they say, you will not be allowed to leave your house as they box you in further and further. And even when they do force out or rush a vaccine in record time, bypassing all sorts of safety measures, it will be enforced maybe voluntarily at first, but probably ultimately forced vaccines administered by the United States military. These are scary times, but it's important to keep up with them and spread information. And that's why I do it. Please, please, if you can, share this video. Share the articles if you don't want to share this video. Get this information out there. But if you did like this video, I do strongly ask that you like us, share us, subscribe to us, whatever it is that you do to support your favorite content creators. I would hope that you would show Blues News Media that same sort of love. We're all in this together, and it really, again, it really does not have to be this way. Thank you very much for tuning in to Blues News Media. I am Lucas Tietzen, and if you take one thing away from this show, hopefully it'll be this: ignorance isn't bliss.